I'd like to share a few things about myself which are related to what we're going to talk about today, related to this time. Okay? So, the first is that I think of myself as a sports person disguised in a corporate avatar. There's a goal that I'm chasing, which I call as 42, 42, 42. Okay. For those of you who don't know, a full marathon is a distance of 42.195 kilometers. I always make sure to say 0.195 because that's also sometimes hardest to do after running that much. So 42, 42, 42 simply means that uh, doing 42 full marathons in 42 cities across the world. So I'm right now at like 20 full marathons in 10 cities. There's still a long way to go. But the reason I share this with you is very interesting. So when I was getting ready from Bangalore to come to Ashoka, so I was packing my bag. I was talking to my wife, and I was telling that I'm going to be, addressing future CEOs, future leaders, future bureaucrats, change makers, and she listened intently to it. And while I was doing that, I was packing my, all the running gear, which I would have loved to wear here, and which I normally love to wear. And she said, like, you better carry some formals too, so that you don't miss a chance to impress all of you. And that explains like why I have this on. But this helps me because this AC is the I never am a big fan of AC, so it is helping me right now. Okay. Second thing I'd like to tell. Yeah. Very good. Okay. Very, that adds to my knowledge. So I think second thing I want to tell is I believe I'll have three phases to my career, or I have. I think first phase was all about depth and expertise. Like I graduated as a production mechanical engineer, then I somehow found my footing. I think there was a lot of training that went behind it into computer science, and I started working with the software product companies, majorly focused on software engineering. And by the time this phase ended, I was, handling reasonably large portfolio, large team, etc. I was not bad as an engineer. I had like, I think 15, 16 patents to my name. But that phase, I realized, life is short and professional life is even shorter. So it's not worth living with just one identity. So I thought, like, and that plus I think some other things led me to believe that I think, you should branch out, right? And then just left my expertise and started to branch out. And that's when the next phase of my career started, which I call as breadth phase, where I started to move horizontally, right? I think I was leading different domains like technology operation. I was leading innovation for a Fortune 500 company. Then I was doing a product management for a very complex project. And then I was doing, for a Fortune 1 company, I was leading technology strategy. Then now from Fortune 1, I'm in a, startup in a role that I had never done before. So my only rubric was to see like, whatever I'm taking next, I have not done before. And if there are people to bet on me on that. The third phase, I believe, would be where I leverage my depth and breadth, the experience related to that, and pick up a problem of significance, right? I'm pretty interested in sports management, like, how to uplift the, status of Olympic sports in India. That could be potentially one problem that I'll pick up, but who knows? I think I'm at probably a later half of my second phase right now. But the reason I tell you is this. So when I was coming on the flight, after sorting out my dress, what I'll wear here, I had my notebook, which I carry always. And I jotted down like all the roles that I have done in my career so far. And then I also, against each role, I wrote down top three activities that I did, not outcomes, the activities that I did that led to the outcomes. And then I asked myself this question: if I had ChatGPT available to me on the first day of my career, how would it have made an impact? And I did some back of the envelope calculation, and it's not like a detailed depth study, but I think what I figured out after that exercise was that I would have gained in my estimation, around 3.5 to 4 years of career time. If I had this, I'm not quoting McKinsey, I'm not quoting Gartner, I'm not quoting Forrester. It is my own story. If and I know like ChatGPT, I've tried mid-journey a little bit, but just with that knowledge, I'm saying this thing is real. Okay. Uh, and I still see a lot of non-believers, not in student community. I hope you guys are, always ahead of your times, but in my professional community who still like to say that, this is, this thing hallucinates, and, the discussion is all around the problems around it. Human beings also hallucinate, right? So third thing that I want to tell is that I grew up hating history. Okay. And I can say that like school was bad, education system sucks, and whatnot, right? I think, but I said, like, let me, at this stage of my life, I should take ownership of all the things that I loved and hated. And I realized that I didn't approach history in the right way. So when I was in my first job, one of the first problems that we were solving was some very complex software system, a test coverage problem. So to test, imagine yourself testing ChatGPT. The possibilities are infinite. So test coverage is a very scientific problem to solve. And we were in an intense debate. And one of the things, I was looking up to my seniors, but, it always, how these meetings are, right? It just goes in a flux. So I went out of the meeting and thought like, somewhere someone would have solved this problem in the industry, right? I think, most of the problems are like that. They are solved by someone somewhere. We just need to be aware of that. And that led me to, figure out a little bit about history, like, work of Boris Bezer, who was supposed to be a thought leader. And that could help, that knowledge perspective could help us reach closer to the problem. That was my first appreciation of history. And the second one is a very interesting story. I'm not sure how much of your generation knows about Intel. Intel used to be a powerhouse at one time. Okay, so there was a powerhouse in microprocessors, which are the brains, CPU of the system, but they were not in microprocessors from the beginning. So they started with the memory chips, and they were doing phenomenally well at that time. Okay, so but suddenly what happens in the Japanese products come into the market. So the Japanese product, they were higher in quality, lower in cost. So within months, Intel faced existential crisis. And then this conversation, which I read in this book, Only the Paranoid Survive, between Robert Noyce, who was a CEO of Intel, and Andy Grove, who later became the CEO of Intel. He says, we are in a deep trouble. Robert Noyce said, okay, he used some choicest word, which I cannot say now. But he said, we are in deep trouble. And Andy said, we surely are. When Robert asked him, what should we do? So Andy thought for a bit, and he said, like, if we are fired from our jobs today, what will our successors do if they are onboarded? And Robert, without skipping a beat, said that they'll move us out of memory business. And that's how they got into microprocessor, not out of chance, because they had invested a lot of research in microprocessor, and that seemed like a logical thing. And a lot of things collided, and it became a huge success. And that really gave me a lot of insight. Like every time in a very difficult professional situation, I always ask this, like, if I'm fired tomorrow, what will my successor do? And it helped me come out of it. So basically, I think the appreciation for history grew over a period of time. Looking back at it, a lot of problems, even if you face in your current curriculum, they have been solved by someone somewhere. Okay, so history, and why am I talking about history? You might wonder. I think history is more than just I'm sure I don't need to tell you these guys, right? You guys are would be well aware of this. It is less about dates. It is less about milestones. It is more about human experience. It is about deciphering how humans have lived, how we have progressed, how we have conflicted over a period of time. So if you look at the overall life that has gone by, it is the whole canvas of life. It has a lot of dots. Each dot in the history represents an event or a milestone, significant or insignificant. Individually, they won't make sense. But once you connect it, the clearer picture will start coming. So why am I telling you this is that we live in a time where changes are happening faster than we can ever imagine. And I'll come to this. I think there is a illustration that I would like to show you in some time. And all of us need to have some sort of a compass that can give us directional insights, right? You need to have your own framework. For me, history works, but you can figure out what works for you in that sense, right? I said compass, I didn't say map. So maps tell you how to go from point A to point B, but you need to have a directional sense of whichever field you pick up, where is it going? And to me, I think history gives that sort of insight. So history helps you collect the dots, which you can connect to at least form a point of view about the future, which is very, very important, and which is what partly we are going to be talking about today. And not only right? I think there have been numerous instances. If you have seen this Netflix series on Bill Gates, how he thinks his mind. I think I'm not remembering the name. Inside Bill's brain. It talks about how he learns. So his knowledge base is not limited to technology alone. I think in 2014 or early 2010s, he did some analysis, getting inspired by the problem that he wants to solve. He did an analysis on Spanish flu and figured out that there is very less. We as a humanity, we are not prepared for uh, as a humanity, we are not prepared for handling pandemics. And that he said in 2015. There is a TED talk also. In 2020, we were faced with, and this is all his knowledge and appreciation and the direction that he got by applying that knowledge in the history. Okay? So enough of history. I think I'm sure, this course have been going great for all of you, and but I thought we'll do a bit of a recap of few terms that you might already know, and generative AI. I think we have used it loosely. I like to define it as a field in AI where which helps you create content. I think I like to call it as creativity unleashed through artificial intelligence. There's another term that you might have uh, come across in the previous classes, which is large language model, LLM, which is a specific type of generative AI, which is focused on understanding and creating human language. You think of aeronautical engineer, he or she might use software to model a wing of an aircraft. LLM focused researcher has language as its construct to figure out figure out the model and how to come up with uh, the outcomes through the algorithms. And then there is this term called as GPT, which is generative pre-trained transformer. So transformer was a software machine learning algorithm which was created by Google, and they open sourced it. So open source means that anyone which with the anyone can use and extend that model without taking permission from Google, depending upon the license type. So open source have different license types. Unlike closed source models like Microsoft, they sell their software, but nobody is able to get to the source there. They open sourced it, and this is probably the world's most popular, most powerful large language model which is out there, which helps you predict what the next sentence could be. So these three terms, if you have to tie the relation between them, think of generative AI as a universe, and think of LLM as a star system, and think of GPT as a brightest star like Cirrus in that system. Okay, and think of generative AI as a broader category called vehicles, and LLM as type of that vehicle, which is aircraft, and maybe GPT as the best aircraft, maybe Boeing. So that's how these three terms are related in that sense. Okay, and then there is also this term that we hear, and we are going to be talking more about today, which is singularity. So singularity is a form, technological singularity is a hypothetical point in future where technological growth will be so fast that it is theorized to be, uh, totally uncontrollable and irreversible. And we'll come to the nuances of it. But what theorists say about singularity is that the progress of AI and technology will be so fast that AI will start improving itself without the human intervention. When AI starts improving itself without human intervention, you can imagine what kind of happen. But I'll help you imagine that a few slides from now. I think we'll just do a few of these thought experiments around it. But I think singularity, you can think of it as a phase in our evolution as humanity where AI or technology surpasses the capabilities of human brain. Okay. Okay, let's come back to history, and I'll make these transitions a little bit to just make a point that I'm trying to make here. Okay, um, and have you come across this book and read it? Like, how many of you have read *Sapiens*? Okay, as expected. So quite a few. I think I'm sure you guys can teach me what I'm trying to portray here. So four revolutions that have that had a pivotal impact on the humanity. I'll come to cognitive revolution in a bit, but agricultural revolution happened 12,000 years ago, and this helped make a dramatic change in humanity. We were hunter gatherers, nomads, going from one place to another, and we suddenly were tethered to a land where we started doing farming. And this is said to be the phase in which cities and civilizations started forming. But this is also said to be a phase where a lot of inequality started coming in. There are new professions which started: animal husbandry, and then trading if you had multiple surplus of agriculture, a lot of things. Then scientific revolution happened in 16th century, 500 years ago, and it gave world the framework to think using a scientific lens, and which was not as much happening earlier, right? And but this also brought it with it a lot of ethical and moral concerns, which we are still talking about. And this is the era of Newton's, Galileo's, Copernicus, Bohr, where a lot of scientific progress happened. And third one is industrial revolution, which happened 200 years ago, just a while from now. If you look at the overall scale, what did industrial revolution do? It was a phase where humans started getting replaced by machine. Phase of unprecedented growth. A lot of things changed. Economy started growing like any time before, but it also brought in it with concerns specific to the climate, as well as the working conditions and a lot of other things related to it. So what Yuval Noah Harari says in this book is that almost all these phases, humanity underwent unprecedented change, like something we are in cusp of right now. All these phases we went through it. So first thing is that we should, as much as we should say why us, like why are we in this phase, we should be taking cognizance from the fact that a lot of our ancestors have gone through probably a lot of bigger changes there. But I'd like to talk a little bit about cognitive revolution, because I see parallels of cognitive revolution, what happened during this phase, and what might happen when generative AI, which is a path to something bigger in terms of technology and humanity that we are seeing, right? So cognitive revolution, think of like two people, one guy named Martin, one guy named Paul. So Martin is a Homo sapiens, the species, which all of us belongs to. And then he had a cousin named Paul, who belongs to a species named Neanderthals. So Neanderthals was, earlier ancestors of humans. And Neanderthals were very powerful. They were very good hunter-gatherers, and they had a lot of survival skills, physical survival skills. But 70,000 years ago, Martin gained some special powers. And what those special powers was that Martin started to think abstractly. And Yuval Noah Harari says that it happened because of accidental genetic mutation, right? I think there is no better way to explain why Homo sapiens really started to think abstractly. So abstract thinking is nothing but cognitive process which helps us imagine things or objects or ideas which are not existing in physical realm. As an example, I can tell you, just before the last seat in this room, there is a river flowing, and on the other side there is a desert. I can say weave words in such a way that I can make you believe it. And if you believe me, right? I think, and that really gave the power of imagination to humanity to invent a future that they otherwise would not have thought about. And it was a gradual process, right? I think you're talking about 70,000 and then 12,000, the agricultural revolution happened. So in this phase, a lot of things came. Language became important. We started dealing with symbols. The hierarchies came in a society. We started to recognize people as leaders, warriors, and soldiers, etc. And how is this related to what we are discussing here, right? I think, okay, so time frame, we are talking about 70,000 years ago to now. And catalyst is, in case of cognitive revolution, was a biological catalyst. Now it is a digital one. And cognitive abilities, it was abstract thinking, the power of imagination. But generative AI is taking general problem solving to a different level, adding time to our lives. Significance, it gives, cognitive revolution gave human beings domination on Earth. So human beings were not the top of the food chain always, right? I think they were somewhere in the middle. I think there's also a story which says that, whenever the animals on the top of the food chain, they used to get their, attack and get their food. They used to eat the best part of the flesh, and then the jackals and hyenas used to come, animals in the next phase of the food chain, and they used to eat the remain. And humans who came later had to learn the skill of extracting the bone marrow so that they could survive. And that is how we adapted over a period of time. And I think there is another interesting story about invention of fire, right? So chimpanzees and humans were supposed to be at same intelligence level, but invention of fire did very interesting thing. It learned, apart from helping us protect from heat and animals, etc., it taught people to cook food. And how did it help us? Chimpanzees and humans before this invention used to take 5 to 6 hours a day chewing food. And as soon as we learned cooking, we just added 5 hours to our schedule. And I think that all helped in extending the domination of humans on Earth. But generative AI also one of the phases which could lead to new form of intelligent entity. It is food right now. I think there is a lot of potential to be realized that we are talking about. Disciplines, anthropology, psychology, and computer science, robotics in case of generative AI. And impact, it led to elimination of other human species and creation of civilization. I think cognitive revolution, Neanderthals eventually faded away because they could not plug into the society, which, where Homo sapiens were thinking abstractly and making all the progress. And generative AI and all the progress that happens later, it could lead to machine dominance, and which is what we are staring at right now. Okay, so what's the point, right? I think why go back and talk about history, etc. So three things I gather out of this. So history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Okay, in this case, you would have seen understanding our trajectory as a humanity. It will help us prepare better to understand what might happen in generative AI. But second point is more important, which I've heard Jasprit say more often. AI won't take your job. Someone using AI will. Okay, so like Neanderthal who could not coexist with the abstract thinking, it was because they could not embrace co-evolution. It is important that even if you don't believe in what's happening, try out generative AI. I think one of the tactical things that I did when ChatGPT came for the first time was I blocked 20 minutes in my calendar every day to try out new prompts, just to learn. Like, you get a lot of prompts, like if you're following right people, a lot of people are doing research around it, and, just get better at using it in your daily life, even if you don't understand the, nuances around it. And third part, I'm sure Jasprit will be talking about a lot today, anticipating ethical implications, as we have seen in all the revolutions, it came with some sort of a baggage, some sort of things that didn't work out for a section of society. And generative AI, there is a lot of it is devoid of the legal framework right now, which is probably one of the biggest dangers that we have to deal with. So chasm is an interesting term. It was You can think of chasm as a rift or a gap in the Earth's surface, which is often hard to cross. Uh, Jeffrey Moore was a futurist author. He wrote a book called as Crossing the Chasm, in which he defined different phases of technology adoption. He says there are 5 phases of technology adoption in any successful product. One is which is called as innovators. Innovators are people, like you saw iPhone 15 was released, people who are standing on the line buying on the first day and waiting. So those are the people who would always want a taste of new technology. Then there are early adopters. They are also visionaries, but not as mad as innovators. They support new technology and adopt it eventually. Then there is something which is called as uh, early majority, and these are pragmatists. Like I think I belong to that category, so I can say that I think they are pragmatists. They want a product to solve a problem for them, and they need some convincing before they adopt the product. And then fourth is late majority. They are also pragmatists, but they wait for uh, yeah, they wait for these guys wait for early majority to adopt it and then get convinced. And laggards are people, unless and it is forced on them, they won't ever use the product. Okay. And this interesting thing about this graph is that the size of each section tells like amount of adoption, number of customers as it increases, right? So in order to move from early adopter to early majority, you need to cross this chasm. I think there are products like Google Glass. It started with all the fanfare. I'm saying this example at a wrong time. Facebook released the glass version yesterday with Ray-Ban. I'm not like, to me, it is a technology which is waiting for a problem. It is, and Google Glass failed because I think hardware was not evolved, it could not be charged, experience was not great, etc. A lot of innovators, early adopters, but it could not become a mainstream product. Whereas iPhone progressively made a lot of changes to their products, and they were able to cross, despite like people who stand at 3 a.m. in the line to buy iPhones. There are a lot of other people who wait and buy it because they find utility in it. Okay. So generative AI, in my sense, is still in the early adopter state. Can you guess the reason why it would be in early adopter state? Anyone? Wrong answer is also okay. Absolutely. I think 300 billion maybe, I think the usage. If you look at, we have 8 billion people on Earth, 300 billion is a fraction. If you just think Facebook like 2.5 billion, 300 billion is still a fraction. And it is there. I think that is one of the reasons. Second reason we were just discussing with, yeah, please. You can say. Uh,
AI is not as widespread as something, say, the internet itself. And it's only then when you can say like it is a mainstream market product.
right.
So like right now the problem is about distribution and like most of the ways to access this technology is via as the prototypical stage.
How do you say access distribution is a problem? Google is accessible to all, OpenAI is also.
No, no, that's fine. But like accessibility in the sense like people are not aware enough, but also the information is the issue. Like it's distribution delivery isn't the issue by internet. But
I think we are the more evolved people who are talking about this in the class,
yeah,
and maybe many like us cities. But I think, yeah, I think one very interesting aspect of technology adoption is that you can Google became successful after it became invisible. Okay, and what I mean by that is that you can go to your browser, just type your query. You don't even need to know that Google is doing that, right? And it is invisibly acting on it. So with that standard, what you said is right, that it has to become ubiquitous enough before it becomes. Yeah.
I think I was adding on to that only. So it's not intertwined in our life enough. Like, for
Yeah.
example, if you have to research now rather than going to books, we go to Google.
Yes.
Or if we, like, people switched over from like keyboard phones to like smartphones because a lot of apps and all of that, internet is here.
Absolutely. I think, probably Sam Altman gave the answer to your question. So they released a version of OpenAI, or in process of releasing, which will connect the data set. I mean, connect ChatGPT to internet. So now you can get the links. Even Bard has it. I think Bard has a very interesting feature. I don't know whether I should be telling these tricks here, but I think there is a very interesting feature that it gives a response. Then you press on G icon, it tells you the links on the internet where you can find that information. So you get the, like, validation also. You can, yeah, 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 both. No, both. Yeah, yeah. No, it has to be both. I think, that's what I meant by invisibility, because a lot of times you'll use generative AI when it is like mainstream, then you won't even know that you're using generative AI, like it is the case of search. But there's very interesting aspect that what they have not cracked, and I was discussing with Jasprit some time back, is the business model, right? I think you cannot, like, I'm talking only about ChatGPT, OpenAI, that you cannot, like, yeah, huh? Yeah, time check, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, I think it should. Yeah, but it should, but it won't till it sees. I think this is the Gartner's hype cycle. I think generative AI is probably one of the fastest technology to reach this stage, which is called as peak of inflated expectations, which is in 2 years it reached here. So what it means is that technology is, like, everyone is talking about it. There is a hype built around it, etc. But it won't reach. Uh, Most of the technology sees this. Crypto is in this phase. Web3 is in this phase right now, probably, and metaverse is in this phase. Started from there, but it will reach here. But it will have its ups and downs. Yeah, yeah, 100%. Even like Facebook, after changing its name, stopped believing in it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. When did internet? I think it's been around 92 or 93 it started, right? I think, and like, if you don't count the military usage. And my first access to internet was in 1998. It was not, you know, and I remember, I don't know whether you guys know this term called as STD. We used to use a dial-up line, and from, I think, Pune to Mumbai, we had to call and then access it. Yeah, 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 please. Yeah, I think more than AI, I think fundamental thing of internet access, I think around half of India does not have access to it. Maybe Geo changes that, like, once it launches its more. Do you think? Okay, I'll cover. If you can just hold on to that question. I think we'll just talk about it, because I think there are different ways to answer that. But I'd like to quickly cover this. I know we have to respect the time also. And I think Bill Gates said that, it is we often underestimate what we can do in 10 years, and we overestimate what we can do in 2 years. And that same theory applies to change also. We underestimate what can be changed in 10 years, but we overestimate what can be changed in 2 years. So this is what is happening with generative AI. I think Jasprit also wrote an article recently in Mint, which really talked about this. Like, ChatGPT is generative AI is probably crumbling inside the weight of the expectations that people have put on itself. But I think I want to give this perspective, because one of the things that I'd like you to take away is try and become exponential thinkers, and what prevents us from being exponential thinkers. But real quick, I think if you look at the life-changing inventions across human history, like wheel, steam engine, airplane, internet, search engine, I think there have been lot which have happened over a period of time, right? Gunpowder, for example, the battles used to happen with sharp weapon before the invention of like sword, spear, and bow, arrows, etc. But gunpowder changed the economics and like the scene about the wars and geopolitics, because anyone who had access to gunpowder had an unfair advantage in winning everything. But if you look at this chart, it is not as even as this actually is, right? I think in terms of the timeline. Alternate view of the same chart, the farther back you go in the history, the more spaced apart these innovations become. And what you see is most of the life-changing inventions are happening in our conscious, like last 100 years or something. So density of invention is higher now than when you go back in time. Can be several reasons, right? Accumulation of knowledge. It can be humans are becoming more purpose driven, ideas are flowing more faster right now. But I'd like to give one perspective that about the technological cycles, which typically follow an S curve. If you look into this, every technology, let me take an example of EV industry, right? So General Motor was the first company to come up with an electric vehicle in 1990s, GM model EV1 or something like that. And it mass produced that car, but it failed. Okay, that was the introduction phase. Technology went through some cycles, but over a period of time, environmental impacts, etc., came into being, and then inventions in the battery technology. Then Tesla was born. Around 2010s, it reached the growth phase where we had an awesome battery. We have a car which was matching the performance of the normal car, the Tesla, and then now it is more so in a maturity phase where companies like Volkswagen and GM and others are really investing in the electric car. It has not yet reached plateau, but most of the technologies follow this kind of a cycle. And it, somewhere it phase, there is, but there is alternate view to this, that when we talk about technology cycles, it does not start from the scratch, but it builds on the previous one. For example, in 1970, a person was very happy listening to music cassette. Do you guys know about music cassettes? Or like it is, concept is too alien to you? Okay. I have a few at my home still. So, but a person, I think we take music streaming for granted right now, but it is built on several incremental innovations that have taken place to render us the experience that we are having right now. Like, this music cassette ended, like, the music CDs, DVDs, they started, then iPod for music, and then then it led to music streaming. So it is a person in 1970 who would not have imagined that one day humanity will be having a online streaming, etc. And there is a reason, right? I think humans often have a poor intuition, poor judgment about the future developments that are exponential. Okay, and it plays out, right? I think it plays out mostly due to our failure to connect the dots. There was a very interesting story that I remember in mythology, right? There was this king who happened to meet this sage who was passing by, and he understood that he also likes chess like the king. And king offered him a match. He said, like, okay, if you beat me, king said, what would you want? The guy said, my needs are simple. You give me 1 grain of rice for the first square, 2 for the second square, 4 for the next square, 16 for the next square. King said, okay. And king lost. And by the time it occurred to him what hit him, and he owed him the amount of rice which was more than his wealth. And this figure I calculated, it turns out to be some 18.4 followed by 8 zeros, grain of, 18 zeros, not 8 zeros, 2 raised to power 64 minus 1. The problem is, I think we fail to realize, I think that's why, most of the financial investment industry, they said, compounding, you have to invest in. So we fail to see the benefits of, because we are not tuned to think exponentially, right? And that's where I want to mention this, like future will happen now mostly because There are developments happening all across. So even though we think, even generative AI, for the non-believers in us, we think it may grow like this, but there is a very high potential that, the reality will be this. And the gap between this and, these two lines is called as exponential gap. So takeaway from you from this section is that think of the S curves, technology S curves, and um, all other trends which are happening. And to make this actionable, what I try and do is I just spend like 1 hour every week to, I've identified few areas to see like where, world is headed, like capture the news and keep it ready so that you start building a point of view around it. So it is important, like, if you have to make something actionable, put it in your calendar. It has to be real for you to make this actionable. But important to train yourself to be exponential thinkers so that you can have your own predictions around these things. So building blocks of singularity, right? We'll come to the last section very soon. But I'd like to, we talked about S curves. So what are the S curves which are driving the whole concept of singularity, right? Eventually there'll be many technologies that will come to fore, but these are the three fundamental things which are evolving at some pace right now. Cutting edge algorithm, I call it ABC. You have big data and then the computational power. Okay. So just to give you an algorithmic advances, 1960s, 70s, we had AI algorithm. There was this application called as ELIZA, which was, which was magical for the people then. But I think it was a simple chatbot which used to sort of interact based on pattern matching and text substitution. So it was not, of course, as advanced as ChatGPT. Then there was this application which was used by like doctors, which was called as Mycin. It used to do a good job of identifying the infection, bacterial infections after being asked some questions. It used to prescribe antibiotics, but it was governed primarily by the rules which were there in the database. And then came, like in 2000s, there was something called as ensemble model. You can think of it as, 5 researchers somewhere in the world developed 5 machine learning algorithms. Ensemble models figured out a way to extract the best of all of them and combine it together. For example, Netflix's algorithms are like, there are collaborative filtering algorithm which tells like what people who watch the same content like. Then there are content filtering algorithm which learn from your history. Then there are deep learning algorithms. So it's a mixture of ensemble model. And then Google BERT algorithm, it is more nuanced, more advanced deep learning technology, which helps search algorithm understand the context behind your search, right? So algorithms are advancing rapidly. Data is exploding big time. I don't need to tell, like, I think GPT-3 version of OpenAI, it was trained on 45 terabytes of data. Any guesses like how much time you will take to read 45 terabytes of data? Okay, don't try to guess. Like I tried to do this exercise, but I read it in Kai-Fu Lee's book AI 2041 that it takes 500,000 lifetimes to read 45 terabytes of data, which machine is doing it for you. That's not all. Then this data is increasing 10x every year, and we are like really talking about that scale right now, which was unimaginable. And last but not the least, computing power explosion is happening, like accelerating pace of change. There was this very famous Moore's law, which governed the earlier phases of technology. It said the number of transistors in a CPU will double every 18 months. I think probably it is no longer applicable. I think now it is growing at a rapid pace. I think this computer has an NVIDIA G4 GTX, which is a GPU which is said to be the brain of the AI, an entire machinery. The GPUs in I think 2000s, not too far from now, used to have around 4 or 5 million transistors. This one has around 50 billion transistor. I think that is the power of the machine which is there. I think this is growing exponentially. This is a trend I try to track as religiously as possible, and try to see what's happening, because it's not one person inventing AI. There are like several forces coming into picture, and that helps you build a point of view. Okay. So after ABC, just the last section, hopefully we have um some time. Any questions so far? Like, I know we accelerated the pace. Okay, so let's. I'm sure this part will help raise some questions. Arthur C. Clarke said this: any sufficiently advanced technology, he was a science fiction writer, right, is indistinguishable from magic. So let's do a thought experiment, right? Assume that there is a person in 1700, industrial revolution had not happened, and he time travels to today's time. What will he or she see? We are talking about a time when there are no cars, electricity, there is no, even if you get a minor cut, there is a high chance it can prove to be fatal. There was no anesthesia developed there. The surgeries used to happen in a very painful manner. There was no communication. It was a luxury to carry a watch like in your pocket, etc. Astonished, overwhelmed. I think if that person comes here, he'll look up. There is a aeroplane going. He won't know what to say. If that person comes to Bangalore, he would be astonished to see the traffic situation yesterday. Where things were not moving. I think somebody ordered a pizza also in the traffic jam, and they delivered it also. But I think the point is that will we feel the same way as a person in 17th century felt if we were in if singularity happens? Maybe time will tell, and it's not too far if experts are to be believed. Okay, so singularity, this phrase first came in from physics. So there's this concept called as black hole, where the space-time curvature is totally bent. What it means is that the laws of physics are not applicable inside the black hole. So the analogy is that nobody knows what happens inside a black hole. There is another analogy which is used, which is, think of it as a large vacuum cleaner which sucks everything in, including light. Nobody knows. And singularity is equated to this phrase because nobody knows what will happen. Imagine the progress of 100 years, happening in 5 days. And what will happen, like you go to work tomorrow, you don't know. You come to class, you don't know what's going to happen. I think that is the scenario which is normally associated with singularity, because everything will come together in some way, shape, and form. This gentleman was for the first person to talk about the concept of singularity in technology context. John von Neumann, he was a mathematician not too far ago, 1950s. AI was still in its infancy, but his genius, his exponential thinking, he could predict that technology at that time was accelerating in such a fast manner that singularity is possible. And what he meant by singularity is that technology is advanced so much that it will be hard for humans to, or impossible for humans to fathom what's happening. It will be hard for people to keep pace with what's going to happen at that phase, right? And then he's also credited with the idea of self-replicating machine, like you've seen. I'm not sure, like if you guys watch Bollywood movies, there was this Rajnikant movie called as Robo. Have you guys watched? Okay, so you saw that this guy replicates and become a nuisance for society. And that kind of scenario, self-replicating machine, it has a positive uses too, like nanotechnology can create a lot of advances in medicine and all that, but it has negative repercussions too. I think I'd like to, just a couple of more points I want to cover, but singularity, if you want to imagine some scenarios, like some thought experiments around it, assume that singularity has happened. Okay, we are in that phase right now, and I get a fever, and I go to a doctor and ask doctor that I have a fever, and doctor does a complete genome scan, like which tells my entire history of how genetic makeup is, and and it is run completely via algorithms. He runs that scan, and instead of prescribing medicine, he sends a message to a very trained lab technician, and this guy gets the message and gets entire analysis. He feeds this analysis into a robotic system. It creates a very customized medicine based on my genetic makeup. It produces that medicine, uh, and then after it produces that medicine, it sends it for FDA test. It got approved. Everything, all these steps happen in 10 minutes. Okay, and in this 10 minutes, doctor sees like 10 other patients while I'm waiting for my medicine, and he hands over a very customized, not like one size fits all. Yesterday I had Prosin Dolo 650, which is like every one of us will have without knowing how it impacts our body. But think of the level of personalization that we are talking about, which is here. And even imagine a situation of AI 2041. Kai-Fu Lee talks about this scenario of future of education, highly personalized, right? There will be one teacher, but because of AI assistant, uh, all of us students will have AI assistants, and AI assistant will know your learning habits. You like history, you don't like mathematics, and it will tailor that lesson on the fly for you. And the classes are still happening in a social setting because you can learn from each other. But you are getting a customized lesson on the fly, and it is really helping you tailor your education. And if AI figures out that none of you are getting the class, it just change the curriculum and make sure that it's more effective. And then it gives you homework, like Jasprit is going to give today, on which is very customized to your learning habits. I think these are the positive possibilities. There are negative ones too. Think of social cohesion, right? AI can help detect crime, which is a great thing. It can help predict crime, but it can also help predict. I think to some degree it is happening in China. If news is to be believed, they've done the profiling of people. It can help you help assess intentions, whether a person is going to commit crime or not. Okay, and if it incorrectly detects that you are going to commit a crime, it will flag you as a risk, and society will just say, well, you are at risk, I'm not going to talk to you. As it is, I don't think people will talk at that time, right now also we're all glued to our devices. Okay, so I think there are positive, there are negative, ethical concerns, there are regulatory concerns which are there. A lot of thought leaders talking about it. When Elon Musk says something, my rule is you listen, because there'll be multiple layers of even. I think this tweet that he wrote, "Singularity is near," was a response to a very trivial tweet. A person had written that I asked my son, "What do you want to become?" And this guy said, "I want to become a doctor or lawyer." And father said, "Get real, get some real job like prompt engineer or a YouTuber or something like that." And to which Elon Musk responded, "Singularity is near." And it is deep. I think he has been proponent of AI for good, AI for advancement in some ways, but he also says that there is a chance that AI can destroy humanity. Sam Altman also said interesting thing. He said singularity is near, but AI models are tools, not creature, which is a very interesting observation. If you look at evolution of automation by AI, I see three phases. One is task automation, which is like happening to a larger degree, right? Task like ChatGPT automates a lot of stuff. Then there is an assistive technology, I think, which I will say ChatGPT more follow on applications of ChatGPT like Copilot, etc., which helps you do the job alongside with you. Then third thing is autonomous, where you have given the control to AI and it is doing the job for you. When it talks about tool, it belongs to, I think, first two categories, assistive or task automation. Creature is when it becomes autonomous, like it is taking decisions for you, and like Google Maps does for you now, right? Which routes to go. You're given the autonomy to it, like leaving aside the joy of like putting your window down and asking a passenger. But I think yeah, it will. Some applications might reach that way. Ray Kurzweil, who wrote a book in 2005 ahead of its time, Singularity is Near. He says human life will be irreversibly transformed. Okay, and he said like, and we'll be able to transcend our biological limitations too. He had an interesting take on this. He said future of machines will still be human, but they won't be biological, which is a very confusing statement in my mind. But he's also writing a book now. Singularity is nearer. I think to your question, he said that no, you can go wherever you're going. Yeah, he said that singularity may predicted that singularity may happen by 2045, which is in uh, of course I think in your all of your peak times. And one of the most pessimistic point of view came from Yuval Noah Harari, who wrote a lot about history. He said like within a year or within a century or two, at most, our species will disappear because we'll give so much of control to AI, basically. So I think that kind of sets us up for the next discussion uh, on ethics of the AI, because I think it is important to uh, I don't think we can generative AI can cross the chasm till those important issues are sorted. And it's important also to I think these comments just take it with a pinch of salt. I think one of the things that I've learned is um, pessimists sound more relatable than optimists. Like in this case, it's all human. The way human beings think. If you watch a horror movie, you will feel more scared than you watch an inspirational movie and feel inspired. Like we are more driven by fear than hope. So I think take it with a pinch of salt. I think it is human beings. Pessimist may sound cool, but optimists define the future. So I think that's all I had to cover. I hope you're on time, Jasprit. More or less. Okay. I think any questions that I can do before we go?
Of transistors like you can fit on a chip.
Right.
And that's why we're like exploring other forms of computing, like quantum computing. So what does the intersection look like, say, for these two parallel technological advancements, like quantum computing and generative AI?
I think quantum computing, as far as I know, it is expected to accelerate everything that will happen right now. I think the scale, I belong to cybersecurity space, and one of the biggest threats, which is future threats, which is talked about, is what will happen if quantum computing becomes a reality, because the realms on which it works is very different than the current computing, which is based on zeros and ones. Right, there is a whole entirely new nuance of thinking about it in qubits. So think of and maybe Jasprit, you will have a more yeah nuanced perspective on this. But think of anything that we are doing, maybe 1000x of that. Uh, you know, very conservatively will happen when quantum will come. Schools of thought. That thought is gradually going on. Other things beyond complete power. So it was just complete power, sure, quantum computing could actually I can give a parallel from again book Sapiens, right? I think the cognitive revolution that happened, um, very interestingly, the evolution of language happened because of a very trivial thing, that we would dismiss. And what Yuval Noah Harari talks about is gossiping. He said like as much as humans used to communicate with each other about like lion is coming, there is a danger, they found more joy in talking behind the backs of other humans, right? Who loves who hates whom, and etc. Right, and that formed the basis of language, because that brought the society together, and that formed the basis of the various new technological advancement ideations, etc. And that is important now, because I gave that Rajinikanth example where machines multiplied. That's fine. Machines can multiply, but can machines cohesively work together? Can ChatGPT talk to Bard and solve a bigger problem? I think that is where probably humans score over it, because we survived over a period of time, because a lot of credit to the social skills that we developed, which I think AI will somewhat need to at some point.
Entirely will disappear
Yeah.
in 1 or 2 centuries. Those are two contradicting thoughts, aren't they?
Can I request something? In fact, that's one of the reasons I also came here. I think a lot of what Anuj has said and what I will say, there's going to be an overlap, okay, including this. And so one of the ways we had thought of structuring this class was, let's kind of keep the Q&A at the end of both, if that's okay. Okay, so we can then, kind of take something like that, because we're going to talk about that bit also. Yeah. So if that's...
No, that's okay. Yeah. I think just on the point that you said dumb question, the only dumb question is the one which is not asked, okay?
So, yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah. And look, he'll also be there answering questions, so I'm not letting him go right now. But just to complete, just to kind of, add, the two things, exponential and singularity, are very linked. Okay, it's this whole the rice grain thing, and this kind of curve happening in scientific innovation and all that is super linked. Okay, and in fact they are so linked that Ray Kurzweil, who was there, well, he's here right now. Ray Kurzweil actually invented the term singularity. I mean, it was John von Neumann. You're right. And actually, on von Neumann, I want to say this. He is widely regarded to be the most intelligent human being in history. In history. He did more things than anyone else. And if there's, if you just read von Neumann, you've read most of everything that's happened. He's kind of done so many things in so many places. One of the most underrated, now coming into huge prominence. But anyway, so singularity is Ray Kurzweil. And this whole exponential curves was popularized by a guy called Peter Diamandis. You heard of Peter Diamandis, anyone? Yeah. Yeah. And Diamandis and Kurzweil came together to form something called Singularity University, which is what you refer to, where I also teach when I'm lucky. I went for the course, now I kind of sometimes teach there. But, I didn't get this connection of why is it Diamandis and Kurzweil? But singularity and exponentiality are actually the two sides of the same coin, in a sense. And that's one of the things that I just wanted to, and you saw that happening in this. So we're going to break a little earlier because we're going to keep questions at the end, etc. So thank you very much, Anuj, for this fascinating talk. And which kind of blends so many things together, and we are not letting you go right now. So, why don't we take a 5-7 minute break as always, and come back where we will talk a lot about jobs and a little about ethics. Can everyone hear me, I guess? Yeah. Twice? No? Okay. Cool. Let me just see if this works. So, in this particular session, what we're going to do is actually we're going to try and squeeze in two things related, but two things: work and the future of work and how work and jobs, etc., will get impacted, and the ethics part, since both of them are related. But the ethics part, I really want us to be more of have a discussion rather than because there's so much to be said about the ethics part that you can't I spent 2 years doing it, and I think we've scratched the surface with my AI ethics thing at Cambridge. So I thought I'll focus a little more on the work part. Actually, it changed my mind because I think a lot of questions have been happening on that, and it's also very relevant or directly relevant for everyone here. And so that's why the second part is the one which we will focus on. I wanted to see if we can play this. I wanted to play the volume. Wait, I think there's a volume problem. Hang on. Uh, how many of you guys saw the recent Microsoft Copilot announcement? Some of you saw that, right? So I'm going to just play one of these two. Hopefully the volume works. And
introducing Microsoft 365 Copilot, your Copilot for work. Copilot combines the power of large language models with your data in the Microsoft Graph and the Microsoft 365 apps to turn your words into the most powerful productivity tool on the planet. Is coming to life in the products millions of people use and rely on every day. Let's see how Copilot can use your customer notes in OneNote as well as another internal document. Copilot quickly creates a first draft. You can turn your Word document into a PowerPoint presentation that you can hone and polish. Let's jump into Copilot in Excel. You start by asking Copilot to analyze the data and give you 3 key trends. Within seconds, you've got what you need. Triage your inbox, highlighting the most important emails to prioritize. You can draft a reply using data from an Excel file, and Copilot will generate a reply for you.
The real magic of Copilot happens during a live meeting. You can ask Copilot to summarize what's happened so far. You can see who said what points were made. You can follow a meeting and catch up to see what you missed, even if you can't attend.
I want to show you an entirely new standalone experience. Business Chat works across all your emails, files, meetings, chats, documents, calendar, and more to turn all your data into knowledge.
Now let's imagine you're working on your business strategy. You ask Copilot to pull up quarterly projections and identify related risks. Copilot gives you key data points and flags potential issues.
We're deeply committed to listening, learning, and adapting with speed to help create a brighter future.
so I'm not going to play the second video. It's more of the same. This is actually a kind of a scrunched up 40-minute video into like 2 minutes or whatever. But did you kind of see the power here? It's, imagine a life, and I and Anuj used to work in that life where there was no Excel virtually. Okay. There was no PowerPoint, there was no Microsoft Word. Email was very different. It was a nice life, by the way, without all those things, but it was very difficult to do stuff. And then these things, these products and others from beyond Microsoft also, kind of changed work forever. We are at the same inflection point now. Okay, where, as you can see here, I mean, in a couple of years' time, because this has been put on general release yesterday or day before yesterday. Okay, and so it's kind of available today, and people will start buying. And it's available from October 1, I think. And think of the power here. Basically, it's the same suite, but it's been sprinkled with generative AI. And what has happened is, as it says here, I mean, there have been cases I've seen where you're just sitting and you're saying, okay, I have to go and meet Walmart tomorrow. Okay, and I sell stuff to Walmart, so I have to create a sales proposal. Now, and I and Walmart have been talking to each other for 2 years. So we've got emails, we've got documents, we've got Excel sheets, we've got PowerPoint. And now if I have to make a sales proposal today, I have to actually go back, think of, oh, acha, when we met there, yeah, that, and then, bring something out, this, that. Here, what they call the Microsoft Graph, it kind of goes through all these, including your Teams meetings, including, and it kind of pulls everything together in one document. And then you can edit it, you can do stuff, and you can say, create a sales proposal out of this, and it creates, and you can again edit it. And then as you saw, it says, okay, now create a PowerPoint. And I saw this demo actually where it created a PowerPoint, and the guy wrote saying that, it needs more graphs. That's all it said. It needs more graphs. Okay, and graphs come in. It needs more charts. Charts comes in. And basically, what you would have taken possibly hours, if not days, to make for a client like Microsoft, you can, Walmart, you're kind of doing it in a few minutes or hours. To me, the power of generative AI, we were discussing uh, today, is most in work. Not as much as in healthcare or manufacturing or other industries, BFSI. It's actually in work. And work, by the way, is an industry of worth trillions of dollars. And work will irreversibly change. And you're at the cusp, literally, you're in your second, third, fourth years, wherever you are, and there's this inflection point of work, okay, which last happened possibly 10 years or 15 years or 20 years back. And that's why this is so important. So I just wanted to show you that video. I'm not going to show you this one. It's more of the same. But what's going to happen in work? Okay, and as Anuj was saying, the pessimism kind of sometimes, is much more like in this case, okay, than the optimism around it. So they're both, okay, there's both the bright side and the dark side, and I'm going to talk about both as we go forward. There's lots of research reports, lots of stuff which has come out on work, which will need a very powerful chat GPT 5.0 or 7.0 for me to kind of crunch into something. So and there are lots of these, but I'm going to present my view, okay, on how work will change and what will happen to work. This, by the way, you don't need to read this. I'll tell you what it means. It's again a Microsoft Work Lab study. Microsoft has something called Work Lab. Basically, what it says is, what it says is, it calls it the weight of the workday. 57% of the time in typical white-collar work goes in just showing off. Okay, just creating presentations, writing emails, doing meetings, okay, just kind of doing, frankly, unproductive stuff. 43% goes in actually creating stuff. And this 57% is what Microsoft says generative AI will change. And how will that happen? So this I found really useful, this model, and I use this many times. So first of all, there's a difference between jobs and tasks. A job comprises several tasks. And many times when we say AI will replace jobs, it won't replace jobs, but it could replace tasks within that job. And this model basically talks about how, if you think of white collar work, and I'm again necessarily saying white collar, I'm not saying a farmer's work or a construction, whatever's work or a factory worker's work, but white collar, the stuff we will do, unless you decide to become a farmer, which, by the way, with generative AI happening, is a very safe option. Okay, but three things. What do you do? Work is three things. You act as something. So you act as a copywriter or a ghost writer or a coach or a project manager or a marketer, inventor. You use you basically do the human thing. You act as something. The second part of work is you create a something. So you create a ad copy, or you create an analysis, or you create a blog post, or a book outline, or SEO keywords, or code, or whatever you create. And the third thing that you do is you format it as something, present it as something else. Okay, so that's when you're kind of creating a PDF or an XML or word cloud or rich text or whatever. Now, what I believe, as a distillation of what a lot of people are saying, is that AI and generative AI will take away all of this. All of this. That's what you saw in the Microsoft Chota video that I showed. AI or generative AI will work with us as augmented AI here. So when you want to create stuff, it will work. So I write a lot, as you might know. And until about 3 months back, 4 months back, with great difficulty, I would write 1 to 2 articles to publish every week. Great difficulty. One was great. 2 was like an achievement for me. Today, I do 5 a week. How? Because I work with ChatGPT, the second part, creating stuff. I actually work with it. I first ask it to generate some stuff, and then I kind of don't like it. I reprompt whatever, and then I see something, and then 60-70% of it I write. But a lot of my thinking time actually goes away, and actually, I mean, it's literally helping me in my creative work, and that's what's going to happen in number 2. It's going to work with you. Number 1 is where it won't do anything. This is the human part. Okay, where I have to stand up, look you in the eye, and talk. Okay, as a teacher, just slides flashing isn't going to work. Okay, and there's that human element, which is the act as. And so if you kind of divide work into act as, creator, and show as, the show as part eventually gets taken away. And according to Microsoft, the Work Lab study, the show as part is that 57%, which is the weight of work, which is the whatever. So this is the optimistic view, okay, of what and how it's going to change. Well, that's not my view. That was Microsoft and few others. I agree with it, however. I have a slightly adjacent view to that, and this is what I talk about. What will ChatGPT or generative AI, whatever way you call it, do to jobs? And what I say is that, look, you have to look at it through 4 lenses. The first one is that it will take something. It will. It's going to happen. So if you're a journalist who produces InShots, you know that InShots app is there. InShots doesn't need humans anymore. It's over. Okay. Or if you want to produce code for payroll management, not happening. So the low skill, many low skill jobs will get taken away. Goldman Sachs estimates in an American context that will be 7% of jobs, totally gone. Okay. And this happened actually with BuzzFeed. You know BuzzFeed? BuzzFeed laid off 12% of its people, saying that now we are replacing copywriters with ChatGPT. 12%. Their stock went up 100%. Very happy, everyone. Okay, except those 12%. But I know CMOs who are saying that, look, I used to have 3 copywriters or 4. I'm good with 1. Or I'm good with 2. So that's going to happen. Okay, and so, because as people become more productive, that's going to happen. It will not take certain kinds of jobs. No. I mean, there are some kind of jobs, and Goldman Sachs estimates that as 30%. Okay, will not be taken away. So the farmer, okay, or the truck driver for some time, or the construction worker, or any of these heavy-duty menial jobs. For a long time, at least generative AI is not going to take it. But those are safe. So that's why I said it's good being a farmer today. And that's where there's this very interesting thing called Moravec's law. It's actually also sometimes called Moravec's paradox. Moravec's paradox actually states that, as it states here, it's comparatively easy to make computers exhibit adult level performance on intelligent tests. Difficult or impossible to give them the skills of a 1-year-old baby. So, it can draw and it can do write and whatever as adults do, but ask it to smile at their mother, it's not possible for them to. Or hold a pencil, not possible. So it's a paradox, right? The lower level skills are not getting replaced. The higher level skills, cognitive skills, and what Anuj talked about, the whole cognitive biology versus digital thing, is what is happening. And the same is happening here. It's the more cognitive ones which are actually getting replaced, and the ones which are not cognitive, nothing is going to happen. 3 is very important. And 3 is that where, again, Anuj was saying that we are very bad at seeing the exponential future. We have no clue. It's going to, if you go back into history, and again, going back into history, and I totally agree with Anuj, history doesn't sometimes repeat itself, but it rhymes, which means that it kind of does similar things. And if you go back into this rhyming history, you will find that with every single technological thing, those dots on the chart that he had, more jobs get created than those that get destroyed. Jobs do get destroyed, but more get created. But the key is that we don't know what those new jobs are going to be. We don't know. Look, when Facebook or whatever, MySpace or whatever came out, we didn't know that there would be online reputation managers. Okay, or when Google came about, or Alta Vista or whatever came about, We didn't know there was something called millions of search engine optimizers. And similarly, and therefore, sure, we can take some guesses. Prompt engineers, everyone is talking about. I believe, I'm biased, but I believe AI ethicists will have a great future ahead of them. Okay, but other than that, we don't really know. OpenAI made a little joke at this. They actually advertised something called a kill switch engineer. And the kill switch engineer basically, listen, we just need someone to stand by the servers all day and unplug them if this thing turns on us. You'll receive extensive training on the code word. We'll shout if GPT goes off the deep end. If you can throw a bucket of water, then bonus point for your services. So this is, but who knows? You know, so this is the ethics part, and they just were doing a joke out of it. But prompt engineers, for example, and now there are prompt engines, there are prompt engineering courses. We were talking about it in this break, etc., etc. But number 4, and here there's no number. Like I said, 7%, 30%, whatever. Here we have no clue. We don't know. We can't see how many new jobs. All we can say with some level of confidence is that more jobs will be created than those destroyed. But the 4th is my favorite one, which I keep on talking about all the time, as you know, is that it could enhance or change most jobs. And therefore, the thing that it will not replace you, but a person using AI will. And this, according to Goldman Sachs, is about 60%. 63% to be precise. 63 plus 7 plus 30. Okay, 63%. Now, in this 63%, the jobs will not change, but the tasks will. And therefore, your job will comprise tasks which are different than what the same job used to years back. And these tasks, some of these tasks will be done by us. Some of these tasks will be done jointly by both of us. And some of those tasks will be done by it. And, you know, there are many such examples. I'm giving you examples from my life. You know, I told you about my articles, but on Twitter, I exchanged tweets with this guy, Vishnu, who has a small company based in Bangalore. Okay, and this was, you know, February or so of this year. And GPT-4 also had, oh, sorry, it was after GPT-4. So it was April or so of this year. And he's like, it's been just, and further tweets, it's been just 2 or 3 weeks since we started using GPT-4 for writing code in our organization. And we are writing code 200% faster and shipping faster. This is the real stuff. Okay, the guy is writing to me saying that this is happening. That's what the same thing about, yeah. Lovely. How did I know that you are going to talk about healthcare? No, please continue. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It'll only be that. Sure. And this is going to repeat itself over and over again in different industries. This is the same Goldman Sachs thing, which I told you anyway, so I'm not going to go about it. The only thing that I would tell you, which might comfort some of you, not all of you, is that according to the same report, India would be the least affected in terms of jobs. Why? Because we have too many menial jobs. No other reason. Okay, and Hong Kong, on the other hand, has lots of, you know, cognitive jobs. And so the impact will be different in countries. This is just a farmer thing which I wanted to bring it up because we talked about it a little bit. Okay, but don't need to see this slide. You won't be able to make anything out of this anyway. But what this slide, which is an Accenture one, basically says how the impact will be different across different industries and how it will be different across different functions. So, for example, this one is the industries part, and to decipher for you, banking, financial services, etc., are high, where there'll be high impact. And obviously, mining and agriculture, etc., are the lowest impact. Similarly, if you go to job function, office and administration work marketing, sales, collateral, that kind of stuff is high. And again, obviously, farmer and, a miner and, things of that are low. And, there are enough studies out there. This is just a representative one, but the logic is the same. The logic is that, more of the cognitive white collar stuff is getting more affected, and the other stuff is getting less affected. And that I probably talked about this in my first lecture, but I'll still repeat it because to me this is the most profound statement that I've heard on AI, generative AI, and jobs, and that's by Kent Beck. And I think Sudhir, when he was here last time, he also kind of referred to it. Kent Beck was also associated with ThoughtWorks for some time, and Kent Beck wrote this book called Extreme Programming, which is one of the Bibles of software programmers. And he said this. He said that I've been reluctant to try ChatGPT. And you know what? Many of us actually have been reluctant to try ChatGPT for our work. I started using it for my writing work like 6 months after it had come out. But I was like, I don't want to touch this. God knows how it'll bite me back or whatever. Okay, so a lot of us have been. People like these guys also were. And Ken Beck said that I've been reluctant to try ChatGPT. Today, I got over that reluctance, and now I understand why I was reluctant. The value of 90% of my skills just dropped to $0. I've said this before. The leverage for the remaining 10% went up 1000x. I need to recalibrate. And this statement I use everywhere, not for the 1000x or the 10%. I use this statement for saying that we all need to recalibrate. Now, let me go back to her example, Ria's example. Okay. The same people who do the wet lab work to figure out the protein, whatever, completely need to recalibrate their minds, saying that the wet lab work, let's kind of start doing the protein folding prediction thing. And it's very difficult for people who have done this and are super good at it for the last 20 years, 30 years, telling them that, look, all this is like useless now, new stuff, and the same thing he was feeling. Because he felt that, look, a lot of the stuff which he was very good at, now he does, it's a commodity. And but there is stuff which, only he can do. And that's the value. Now, what is that stuff only you can do? Will be stuff which will emerge as we do more and more work. I'm finding out that as I try and write my articles, okay, actually, it can write an article, but it doesn't have a sense of humor sometimes. I'll just come to you. It doesn't have that turn of phrase which has made my work a little different. And here's where now I want to try a different experiment. Maybe Anuj can help me. I've been needling ThoughtWorks also on this, saying that, look, can we have an LLM trained on my work? Okay, so that, maybe, it comes closer and threatens my job even more. But that's one thing. Yeah, tell me. Yeah, yeah. So let me just come to the ethics part on that. Okay, I'm going to specifically talk. And actually, even between last class and this class, there have been some momentous changes in that, especially in the copyright part. I have that as a follow-up. And then there's a second bit which I think spoke about either in the break or later after that this whole concept. And I think the reason why I get very excited about generative AI and building or coding is this other thing, which I only tweeted, saying that we used to think that English is the new, or coding is the new English. We need it to succeed in the world. And now English is the new code. I don't know how to code. But I worked with GPT-4. I asked it to create my website. Useless, I just gave like 4 instructions or whatever. Like I showed you that video also earlier in the session. And I said, look, justbewinner.com. It actually went and kind of got out stuff about me. I gave one prompt only single prompt. I didn't do a conversation. and it created what looked like to me HTML code. And then I copy pasted that code in Microsoft Notes. Okay, because you can very easily do that. You copy paste that into Note and it makes JavaScript out of it. And I had the lousiest looking website ever. Okay, but it was created in 45 seconds. Now, if I had spent 45 minutes or 4.5 hours, it would have been much better, and it would have been perhaps as good as something which would ordinarily have taken 45 days. So this power of English, and therefore, a lot of people, I think you were telling me that, look, how do I do prompt engineering? I'm not a computer software person. That's the point. You don't need to be. You just need to be great with language. Okay, and how you kind of prompt engineering is nothing but using language better and better. You want to say something? In a much more effective way. And that to me actually makes me the most excited, because so far we've had this, and that's what Satya Nadella also says, great minds think alike. But he also says that the biggest problem was that the majority of the world population could not build stuff, because you have to learn Python, you have to learn whatever, this script, that script. And many of us didn't do that. And we had a disadvantage. We could not communicate with machines. But with this, now that gradually that disadvantage or problem will go away. And that's the other huge impact on work. All of us theoretically can become software programmers. And that kind of is what I wanted to cover in the work portion and explain what I meant by saying that, it's not AI which will replace you, but AI, a person using AI. And I gave you a software programming example. She gave you a protein folding or whatever example. Pretty much in every industry, or I gave you a writing creation example. Every industry has this example. If you're a lawyer, you need to create case briefs or whatever. You need to create, whatever appeals you're putting to the court. You can make 30 appeals and then quickly and then, decide. There was a particular lawyer who just asked for one and gave it to the court, and they found that every citation was wrong. Okay, because that's because he just only got ChatGPT to do it, not ChatGPT along with him. Similarly, for pretty much any other area, you can kind of work with it. And that's why I say that, someone who uses it will always, and that's my mantra, and I keep on dinning it into people's heads saying that, look, you need to start using it. Otherwise, you're going to get replaced. The same thing I also say in ethics. So ethics is a vast topic. I know there are people here who are actually reading philosophy. Much more, they've read more than I have. I'm a very newbie in philosophy and therefore ethics. But one of the ideas that I'm forming on my head is also this concept that we believe AI will kill us, the pessimistic version. And I know someone had asked this question, so I'm answering her also indirectly. I don't believe. Okay, let me just do a class poll. How many of you think that a super intelligent Terminator robot in the next 10 years, 20 years is going to come and kill human beings? You believe so? You're single, you're alone, huh, man? There's no one else with, there are two of you. Sorry? Ever. Okay, let's say ever. Ever. Ever is easy, huh? Okay. Next 20 years? 5 years? So I believe that in 5 years, human life can still go extinct, but not to a killer robot. So my belief is that, again, that it's not AI which will kill you, but a human using AI. And that is a bigger threat, much bigger threat, because the weapons we are unleashing, the tools we are unleashing on the world, we are just assuming that all of us will be nice little boys and girls. It's not necessarily. Yuval Harari, since and spoke a lot about Yuval Harari, talks about the fact that, look, if Vladimir Putin today, I mean, obviously he doesn't like Vladimir Putin, okay? If Vladimir Putin was given this choice, saying that there's this super weapon which you can use to either kill everyone or kill every Ukrainian or not, he says in a second he'll choose and do it. Okay, because, and every Ukrainian only. No Italian, no Indian, no whatever. Every Ukrainian, because that's what the power of AI could theoretically do. Is that he will just do it. And it's not about weapons only. It's not about just lethal autonomous weapons, which is a huge topic in itself. All these killer drones, swarm drones, etc. You keep on reading about. It's also much more insidious. It's about how to use information. I'll just come to you to overthrow governments. I mean, in 2016, most people felt that it was Cambridge Analytica and a few such things which made Trump president. Whether you like him or not is a different matter. Brexit, which if you like Brexit, then there's a serious problem. Okay, was also driven by that. But Cambridge Analytica was nothing compared to the tools that we have today. And so in 2024, with the American elections, the Indian elections, and the UK elections, all three of them coming, I mean, the way to destroy humanity would be to just get the wrong people there. So a human using AI, to me, is much more dangerous than AI itself. You wanted to ask something? Oh, there are, unfortunately, there are many ways we can die. Okay. Okay, we can go extinct. Okay, now I'm on the dark side right now when I'm talking. Okay? But, about 5-6 years back, Yuvraj, I wrote an article. I was in the beginning of my writing frenzy that time about how technology is making us like that frog in boiling water, and, we kind of forgot how to, we forgot, I remember now, phone numbers, because mobile phones made, in my generation, when I was your age, I remembered about 20, 30, 40, 50 phone numbers. Now I don't even remember one. So because technology has taken that need away. And then now I don't need directions when I come from Delhi to Ashoka. I have no clue. Tomorrow, if you were to leave me without my Google Maps, I'd be found wandering somewhere near Mathura or something. Okay, because I have no idea. It's taken that away from me. Autonomous cars, might take away the need to drive. And as you were saying, that whole joy of driving and looking out of the window and, whatever, we'll be sitting there and again consuming content in a car. And so there's the whole, what I call the vegetable syndrome, okay, which is possible. That's another way. Absolutely. I'm not saying that, those are the only, I mean, Nick Bostrom, has any of you heard of Nick Bostrom? Great. Nick Bostrom is an Oxford philosopher and works a lot on AI. Has talked of his famous paperclip thought experiment. I think you know about that. You want to talk about that? And if basically it says, and also it's extended to say, you make a super intelligence to make something very innocuous. I want to make as many paper clips as you can. And it only has that objective. And soon it makes all the paper clips using all the metal. And then it says, okay, fine, let me just I need to make more paper clips. Let me just take these desks away and destroy them to make paper clips. And it figures, oh, you can make organic paper clips, and there are 8 billion organic things here. Okay, it doesn't want to destroy humans. It just wants to make paper clips. Yeah, and so, one day the paper clips, or Nick Bostrom also talks about the fact that, is there a way you can solve global warming? And just solve global warming, very noble thing. And it figures, yes, it can, but for that, the acidity of the oceans would need to increase by 25%. Okay, for whatever reason. And global warming gets solved, but ocean acidity increases by 25%, all organic life dies. So, so there's this whole, there are many ways, therefore, okay, that this can happen. But let's not go into that wormhole or that, let's kind of move a little further away. The good news is that conversations on ethics have started to begin. And they've kind of reached center stage. I think I probably spoke about it, but in the G7 summit, which happened in Hiroshima, tellingly happened in Hiroshima, there were 3 topics of discussion. Ukraine, obviously, China, obviously, and very non-obviously was AI regulation. And so it started getting discussed at those levels. And ethics is one thing. We have also come to know, about basic problems that generative AI has. Now, all these problems, by the way, are solved, okay, because these came out earlier and OpenAI figured it out, and, it kind of solved. But I'm just giving you a representative. Mike's father has 3 sons. 2 are called John and Henry. What is the third one called? It can't answer. Mike's father has 2 sons or 3 sons. John and Henry. Obviously, the third one is Mike. It cannot. Okay, it can't get logic. It can't get relational problems. Many times it will say that 10 kg of iron is heavier than 10 kg of cotton. Okay, because, the iron cotton density thing, it has cracked. And so there are many, and this is what is called hallucination. Obviously, this hallucination thing is getting more and more solved as better and better versions of the GPT part come along. But I have 2 aspects, I have 2 of my own views on it. Well, one is my own and one is the other. And I think I've spoken about that also. That look, these things, and as Anuj also said, are trained on language. And who else is trained on language? Babies, yeah, human babies. And so what do? We make stuff up as we go along. I'm sure all of you do during your exams, vivas, etc. Okay, if you tell me that everything you say is based on a fact, not happening. You guess. Okay, you hallucinate, therefore. And that's why we like ChatGPT. That's why we anthropomorphize it. Okay, we say, please tell me the answer to this question. How many of you have said, how many of you add please before you ask anything to ChatGPT? How many of you say thank you after it gives you the answer? You do, right? You do, because you're thinking, this is me. This is like me. And this is like me is basically this human thing. And again, Mark Andreessen of A16Z said a very beautiful thing to Lex Fridman in his recent podcast. And he said that, look, when you like what it's saying, it's creativity. When you don't like what it's saying, you call it hallucination. So, but what this means is that you have to use it for tasks which can tolerate hallucination. Writing can tolerate hallucination. Creating pictures can tolerate, visuals can tolerate hallucination. Predicting what drug will be used where cannot tolerate hallucination. And that was the article that Anuj was referring to. I wrote my last article, which basically said that, look, ChatGPT came in November 30th last year. And from December 1st, we started thinking it will solve all world's problems. It will disrupt every industry. It will transform every business. It will make cars fly. It will solve world hunger. It's not going to do all of that. So we need to know what it's good at, what it's not. And many of these things, obviously, there's all the ladies here are going to enjoy that little tweet that I put out here, which I'll not read. But it is that way. And therefore, the whole bias thing, we say there's data and there's information out of data. And then, you kind of connect the dots, as Anuj also did, and that dog thing, okay, and you have knowledge. And then from knowledge, there are certain parts which are insight. Eventually, you get wisdom. And then when we become too intelligent, we start building conspiracy theories out of that same thing. Okay, and many of those conspiracy theories are the ones which we are going to talk about today. So this is the simple one. Who has heard of the trolley problem? Everyone. Can someone explain the trolley problem to the rest of the class? Yeah? Yeah. Which is the correct choice? It's an unfair question. Okay? But still, what do you guys think? I mean, 4 or 1? 1. So look, okay, let me just qualify. This train was going a certain way, where it was going to kill 4 people. So it's not that there was a choice to kind of, it was going to, that's the path. That's what it goes on every morning. Okay, where it's going to kill 4 people. But then there's this new path, which you can change to kill 1 person. How many would kill 1 versus 4? How many would kill 4? I mean, I know there are people who are not going to kill anyone. Okay. Oh, there's so many. Yeah, exactly. What he was, yeah, what he was Van Neumann. Okay, who is going to change the world? Or Albert Einstein. Okay. So look, no one has solved the trolley problem. Okay. Uh, uh, Philippa Foot and Judith Thomson were the 2 people who actually popularized this problem. I've kept these names for a reason. It's actually amazing that most of the people who created AI were men. Remember I told you the fathers of AI? Most of the people involved in working on ethics of AI are women. That tells you something about this world. And I was surprised when I did my master's. First of all, in ethics, my course, about 55-60% of people were women, the students. And secondly, I kept on reading about women after women, starting with Philippa Foot and Judith Thompson, and Kate Crawford, and there are many, many, many others. And I think that's a great thing, okay, because that's what is necessary. I will not go more into the gender divide right now. But who kills what, or how many people get killed where, depends on which kind of philosopher you are. Okay, so philosophy basically gives you a way to live your life. Different ways to not a way, different options to live your life. And you hopefully have to decide which one will you choose. So utilitarianism or consequentialism, there are a few people, I mean, that's fairly for people who are studying philosophy here, that will be very 101, but anyone wants to say what is utilitarianism? Yeah. So immortalized in the phrase, the ends justify the means. Broadly. I mean, look, never argue with a philosopher, by the way. Okay. So they'll always, because even within utilitarianism and consequentialism, there are differences. But, you know, we have a very high level thing, so I've kind of kept the same. If you're a utilitarianist, you will basically say, kill 1 person, not 4. You know, like, you know, great, and also not only this, but the greater good, you know, whatever is the greater good. And then obviously there are huge amounts of literature against why utilitarianism is absolutely screwed up. Okay, but again, I'm not getting into that. Okay. If you were a deontologist, anyone who can tell me what a deontology is other than you? Okay, you. Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, it states that all people should follow these laws in any situation.
Any situation. So the Pope has said this, and that's what it will be. Okay, or Christ or Allah or whoever has said this. These are the 10 commandments. And so if you're a deontologist, you will kill 4. Now look, that's where the train was going. That's it. That's the rule. That's where the train goes. Okay, so these are the laws. And Thomas Aquinas and many other philosophers and deontology. And again, within deontology, there's different kinds of deontology. And then there's virtue ethics, which basically says do the right thing. Okay, just do, again, very simplistic, but doing virtue, okay, the right thing. Virtue ethics guy might just put himself in front of the trolley or something, okay, to stop it, or, something else. But as you rightly said, there are huge numbers of variants of the trolley problem. It's not a simple problem. There's the fat man variant. Do you know what the fat man variant is, anyone? Yeah. So the fat man problem says that, while all this drama is happening, there's a bridge on top, below from where these trolleys are going. And there's this fat man who's leaning and watching the action. And you can, if you want, actually push this fat man. And he'll fall right in front of the trolley. Okay, and the trolley will stop. Neither will those 4 get killed. Neither will that one. The person who will be killed was a fat man, but then he was a fat man. Okay, so there are multiple such, there's a legion of such variants. And then, you start, like you brought in the intelligent man. Okay, what if those 4 were babies and that one was an old man, for example? Okay, what if there were like 3 puppies? Okay, versus 4 cats. What then? So there are multiple, and solving ethics is therefore a problem. Because each one will have a different view here, okay, as to what the trolley problem will be. Now, the trolley problem was taken further into something called the moral machine experiment. Anyone here heard of the moral machine? You have. Tell me. Okay, fine. So look, this was by these people, mostly men for a change. All of these people, they are from MIT Media Labs, I think. MIT certainly, but MIT Media Labs. They created this questionnaire, okay? And I'll tell you what, that link actually goes to the moral machine, so maybe I'll just go there for a minute. They created a questionnaire and they put it on the web. And about 40 million people actually answered that question. 40 million people from 233 countries. Sorry, 40 million decisions in 10 languages from millions of people in 233 countries. Obviously, Europe, US being represented most. And the moral machine, let's see if my, this is working. It was around anonymous vehicles. It was built for anonymous vehicles. Basically asked these questions. If there was a baby, then what? If there's this, then what? If there's that, then what? If there's, old men, then what? If there are puppies, then what? Whatever. And what they found was that culture and the answers were correlated. It sounds obvious, but then they had 200 million data points to work from there. And they divided the world into the Western world, the Eastern world, and the Southern world. Southern world was whatever is not in Western. Okay, so South America, Australia, etc., etc. And then they had various parameters. There was sparing humans, sparing the fit, sparing pedestrians, sparing the young, sparing higher status, sparing the old, sparing the intelligent, and then which culture kind of chooses what. So a lot of Eastern cultures actually chose old people over young people because of that veneration for old people. The Chinese had no qualms about killing dogs. Okay, in that, and would always choose people. And so, the moral machine actually then kind of, unfortunately, I'm not connected, but you must go to this. It's great fun. And you can also answer it if you want. Okay, because it keeps on building. And it just then tells you that how every country, every culture is thinking of ethics differently. So what do you do? That's one of the reasons why it's such a hard problem to solve. And that's why, my last but one slide, the many issues of generative AI, but I've kind of said that there are like these 4 top issues. There are many. I'm not keeping the Terminator robot as one of them, as you would see. Plagiarism, And copyright, someone asked me a copyright question. Yeah, is one. And it's the most here and now issue. That all of this content has been created on work by authors like me. By the way, yesterday I saw a site where if you put in the name of the author, it tells you which of its books were scraped by OpenAI. So, you know, and so Stephen King and a bunch of other authors have actually sued OpenAI and Anthropic and Google, etc., saying that, look, you used us and we got nothing, so pay us. And this issue is not yet resolved. It's in courts all over the world, and people are waiting for what the answers will be. Meanwhile, what has happened is about 744 publications have technically and legally stopped OpenAI and others to scrape their information until the answers come. Now, if OpenAI loses the battle, it will have to pay $150,000 for every single infringement like this. And they would have done billions, so it's over. Okay, but what happens, I don't know. What has also started happening is that Microsoft, for example, Adobe, for example, has gotten up and said that we will take the legal ramifications for any product that we sell. Because no one was buying their products because of these ramifications. And they seem fairly confident that most of the data is actually from paid sources. Few such programs like Firefly, which I showed you, remember that Photoshop actually is on Getty Images mostly, and Getty has been paid, so everyone is happy. And by the way, Getty's created its own generative AI. So I think what is going to happen is, as always, as happens with the world, the big guys will get their share of the share of the flesh, the long tail. People like me who are not New York Times authors will get nothing. But some kind of a financial arrangement is being thought about. Someone had a question here. Yeah.
We'll keep doing the infractions. Like they don't care about the ethics or the PR of it. And so like we'll keep doing that. So is that a possibility, number one? And like number two, what's it?
Okay. I'm going to do one thing here. Okay. This is my last slide. After that, we're going to even Anuj is going to come and we're going to start and address those. But the simple answer to this is I don't. Honestly, don't. Okay. The second one is bias, which we are aware of. Garbage in, garbage out. Okay. It's been trained on the internet, which, surprise, surprise, has been written by human beings. And so, you know, there are OpenAI, ChatGPT, for example, talks about doctors and women doctors. Surprise, surprise. Okay. And so, you know, such biases kind of, there are lots of such biases. They're trying to take it out, but there will not be a bias-free generative product anytime in the near future, which includes human beings. Fake news and democracy is the one which scares me the most. For this one, I have an answer. Of the four, which you think is the most worst and the most whatever is number 3. And we talked a little about it earlier, so you know what I mean. The only thing I would say is that, look, if you thought that WhatsApp University was the greatest spreader of fake news, meet the creator. And then environment. I've written a lot about this. Kate Crawford has done a lot of work on this. How these massive generative AI programs actually are worse for the environment than the blockchains that we revive. And, you know, the CO2 emissions, the clean water required to train these models, the chip storage, the cloud, massive. I'm going to finish the slide because this is my last slide, okay, before we come to the question. And I wanted to talk about, finally, at a very high level, what's happening with regulation. You know, I spoke about the fact that today it's not regulated. It isn't. But stuff is happening. So US, as expected, is a more laissez-faire thing, self-regulate. Tomorrow, by the way, my article in Mint is about this, about what different countries are doing. Tomorrow is Friday. Different countries are doing around regulation. They're like self-regulate. Biden calls, Biden and Kamala Harris gets everyone in the room and says, okay, and so you make these classifiers, do this stuff, do this stuff. They've made some progress, okay, but it's basically self-regulation. China, do it or die. Okay, and so their GPTs, which have come out, there are 31 of them, I believe, from Tencent and Baidu and stuff, totally follow the party line. Everything is nice. Unfortunately, that's the only way to regulate it. Okay, if you want to really regulate it, perversely, the Chinese way is the only effective. The third, EU, obviously taking the hard line. The new GDPR of AI is going to be called the AI Act. Basically, it's so hardcore that Altman has said that there'll be no chat GPT in the European Union. Bunch of others, Google has said something else, someone said something else. Basically, they are saying that, look, even if you use chat GPT and do something wrong, OpenAI is responsible. Okay, and so if someone has invented the typewriter and if you do a libel thing, it's not you, but the guy who invented the typewriter. So they're kind of coming with that hardcore approach. UK, with its post-Brexit desperation, is trying to kind of build this World AI Ethics Summit, which is happening in November 7th in London. They're getting everyone together, including China. And that, to me, is the most viable model, where it becomes a nuclear power-like regulation, IAEA kind of stuff, because this industry. India is doing nothing. Basically, every few days, someone stands up and say, we will wait for what's happening globally. Until then, do whatever you want. Okay, so it's basically doing nothing. The Data Protection Act, which has recently come out, doesn't even mention the word generative. Okay, so kind of nothing is happening in that. And, you know, obviously the last thing I wanted to sign off with, you've heard of these pauses or whatever, but it's very significant that this is the second technology ever, where the creator of the technology, Sam Altman in this case, or Demis Hassabis, I said, please regulate. Please. Which was the first one? Nuclear power. We've all seen Oppenheimer. Okay, so nuclear power. There have been only two technologies in this world till now where the creators have said, please regulate. And therefore we have. But it's a complex topic. The trolley problem was to explain that it's almost an insolvable topic. Okay, because everyone thinks different. And there'll need to be huge gives and takes. In nuclear power, the way it was solved was by creating the Non-Proliferation Treaty, for example. The Non-Proliferation Treaty was hugely biased against countries like India. We were never happy with it. And we're still not happy with it. But it has prevented an atomic explosion. So you can never have something which is going to please everyone. Hopefully, we have something which will still displease people, but at least will prevent some of these issues happening. So that's what I wanted to share. And we can get into a bit of Q&A now if you want to come up. There are lots of questions. Please. Vrinda will decide. You know what we would do is, I have a request. Okay, please don't put more than 2-line questions. Okay, let the question be shorter than the answer. And let's take 3 of them together and we answer. And then 3 of them together and we answer, things like that. It'll just be more efficient, I've seen. So, Vrinda.
My question was, where would you talk where this progress?
Okay. Question 1. Let's take 2 more if that's okay, Anu.
So my father's a surgeon, and he recently went to a convention in Bombay for the introduction of a robot in operations. And the hospital was very clear about it being more of a marketing tool and never being used because people are still hesitant. Because if you use a robot, the accountability can shift. You don't know who's made the mistake in the.
So the question?
So the question is, do you see this view changing in the future?
Okay.
So you mentioned how different geographies have different values, and in health, that's what makes us all different as people. To the point at which so many humans start relying on like a similar large language model that would cater to say one value system. How do we retain those ideas?
Okay. Anything you want to say before I go? You sure? Yeah. Very quick answers because I know there are lots. Where do you stop? GPT-4, 5, 6. Okay. I think what people are saying is don't stop the research, stop the deployment. Okay. And that's where you kind of stop in a sense. You don't stop the research. Like in FDA, in the drugs thing, FDA never stops research of drugs. But many times it comes and stops the deployment. Okay. And that's one way to answer that question. Look, this robotic thing has been going on for a while. In fact, X-rays, reading X-rays is supposed to be a big AI capability. Better, they can do it better than humans. But till now, it's always been, and I think for the foreseeable future, it will always be both working together. Okay, and robotic surgery is happening in many places, but it doesn't happen autonomous. There's a difference between autonomous and augmented. Autonomous is a marketing gimmick, as you rightly said. And you were asking about different nations. Yeah, and that's a big one. And another of my articles, sorry, I keep on referring to myself, but then it's me, is called, I don't know if you read this article called Gen AI. We've created something called Gen AI, which is Gen AI for India people. And the whole concept there is that, you create a LLM, which is tuned to Indian dialects, Indian context, Indian view of privacy, etc., etc. And actually, I think we will have multiple LLMs, okay, with different whatever. Falcon LLM, which has been created by the UAE government, actually has Arabic values and Arabic language and whatever. Okay, so that is going to happen. Okay, and yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Stop the deployment. Yeah. Yeah.
I say that. Yeah, so my question was like you mentioned about GDPR and all the regulation, and but you didn't mention it in the top four concerns. Like I was like studying about this. There's an cryptographic method called
short question.
Yeah, like it's an called secure multi-party computation. Like it enables these generative AI to have like attacks against multiple parties without exposing the raw data. So, is there something going on in privacy or?
Got it. I'll answer you. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm being a little so that I want people to, yeah.
Good evening, Professor. My question is, how do you keep up with all these things exploding towards you? And
how do I keep up? As
right.
You as in everyone or you as in me?
Both.
Okay, fine. Okay.
I have to give a little bit of context. So it's like in computer science.
Someone else's question, huh?
Okay. So like especially in computer science, a lot of the jobs require practical jobs require you to refer to Google and like solving your queries on the go. But like education system has really not adopted it in like in classes. Like it's a considered a bad thing for you to look up stuff and like all that. So similarly in Gen AI, do you think like would education systems like this practice would change like in classes and everything in coding is, for example, like will we?
I'll leave the last one for you. Okay. But one of you asked, again, it's in my article tomorrow. There's this thing which is called this isolated island approach. Okay, which says that, you literally carve out an island. Okay, and you do experimentation there and it's air gapped from the rest of the world. Okay, and that's the whole blue red thing. Okay, but it's impractical, frankly. Okay, because but there people are actually suggesting stuff like that. Okay, working on stuff like that, but and that's one model. That's one possible model. Sorry, you had what was your question about? Yeah. Well, that I do the same thing which Anush does. Okay, which is literally like, carve out on my calendar, and I should ask you too, as he said, literally time, which is just keeping up time. Like when he did 20 minutes, whatever, when 30th of November, I woke up on 1st of December and saw ChatGPT happen. I knew it was going to change the world, whichever way. And actually, I had a term paper to submit on 9th December. I fell ill. Okay, and from 1st December to 20th December, got into the rabbit hole. I knew nothing. I didn't even know the full form of GPT or LLM for that matter. And so, if you're passionate about it, and today also like I you also probably know that, and some of you had asked that I also have this community on WhatsApp, and that keeps on feeding me a lot of stuff of new things happening. Sincerity, more important. Without one thing that I what is that I see there. First thing I do is start doing the ask that shift itself move to automation. That shift itself helped me move there faster. Just ask yourself this question: can ChatGPT help me do it faster and better? This question, do you know that? Yeah. Your question was why educational institutes are lagging behind. So that looking up stuff, right? Yeah.
But like,
that it has always been there. I think the time when calculators were supposed to be draining off your ability to calculate, do the mental calculation. I think eventually the systems adopted calculators. I think there was even a study done, I think somewhere in New Zealand or somewhere, that which said that it is, human beings or kids are better at mathematics if they use calculators. And I think ChatGPT adoption or generative AI adoption is happening. It is gradual. I think some colleges have started experimentation. Yeah, I think to kind of give a thing, I think that progressive colleges and schools, as he's saying, have already started saying that, look, keep your, but like the Khan Academy tutor, Khan Amigo, okay, that would be the right thing. So what Khan Amigo does, it refuses to give you the answer. Okay. It keeps on telling you how to get to the answer, but it refuses to give you the answer. And I think that's the right model.
like have some sort of checks in place to avoid plagiarism and stuff like to.
Absolutely. Vrinda, three more. It's not on. So we'll do three more from each side, because I also have to talk about the projects. You want to get some marks, etc., for this course, I believe.
So you mentioned like authors like Stephen King, like suing OpenAI for their work being scraped. So then, in that context, and also under the umbrella of fake news, how would you designate the ethics or the politics of deep fakes? Like, can you copyright your face or your body? What is a person whose face or body has been used?
Sure. A couple more. Vrinda.
So can Gen AI counter its own creation?
Okay.
I just have to give a bit of context. So BCG's Henderson Institute basically followed 750 consultants and looked at how Gen AI works with impacts work. And there were three main findings that I could see. One was about capability frontier, where it improves performance or not, depending on if it is in their strength area. One was about diversity of ideas.
Yeah.
And I think the last one was very related to everything you talked about. So it was about how a lot of the times if AI is excelling at what it's giving the output on, humans detract from its quality if they modify the thing. So my question is, how do we, like, in terms of, you were talking about Microsoft and all these big companies, in terms of people like single employees, how do they use AI? Like, if do they detract from the quality by making it their own? Do they keep working and like sort of just put it as their own thing? Like, how do they work with that?
Okay, let me just come to this side of the room first. Okay, and again, please feel free to add. But one of the big problems which people are now predicting is something called synthetic data. Okay, and this is to your question. So, because of the copyright issues, okay, we are saying that we don't want to get into this mess. Let GPT-5 be trained on data GPT-4 has produced, and GPT-6 on what GPT-5 produces, content, not data, content. Okay, that seems like a perfect answer. Okay, because it's impinging on no one's copyright. The thing is, studies have found that it can lead to complete gibberish happening, because that whole thing keeps on, that hallucination, mega hallucination, mega hallucination. Look, many of these answers we don't know. Can it repudiate itself? Can this synthetic data stuff, etc., happen? We don't know. Your question is much more complex, frankly, and there's massive amounts of work being done, okay, in terms of what is my right to be deepfaked, okay, or for a caricature to be created on me, and that's what Stephen King. I don't know how many of you followed forget Stephen King. How many of you followed the Anil Kapoor case? Yeah, so Anil Kapoor has won this. God knows how long it stays. That his voice cannot be used. The word jackass cannot be used. Okay, because that's him, right? And look, therefore, again, unfortunately, there's no right answer right now. And I guess we'll muddle through this and we'll probably figure out. Anything you have to? That is weird. Okay. Look, this one, I wanted to put this study today, but we didn't have time. Okay, the BCG study. I'll be very honest, I haven't gone through it. Okay, I've only seen that graph. Okay, which is like their top level graph. It kind of says BCG did this massive study with huge number of consultants over specific time. And they have, I think, the most data-led study of they saying that how generative AI has actually helped people in their consultants improve their work, their productivity, etc. And so the first graph is actually what they were, and the second peak is what it shifted, okay, with the use of, but some of the nuances I will need to frankly get into and figure out. I don't know. Okay. Sorry? I don't know. It's if you just Google for, I think you'll find it, BCG work study generative AI something. I don't know what the Anderson Institute, is it? Okay, great. Everyone is looking at you, Vrinda.
So, Professor, my question is that we can only control something as long as we understand it, right? So, are there any measures in place, or can we think of any measures to make sure that we will always understand how the LLMs are evolving, or is it something we can even like conceptualize right now?
I'll answer that once we.
So you were talking about how cognitive jobs would be taken over and higher order thinking and everything. So would we see like a shift to jobs like that are manual?
I hope so.
In like the long run?
Next, she'll come that side. I'll definitely ask.
Right, Professor. Remember when Sam Altman went to Congress? He said this statement which became really famous. He said that if technology goes wrong, it can go very wrong or quite wrong, and it prompted a lot of questions regarding regulations. So don't you think founders of like any other corporation which is based on generative AI making these statements are essentially killing their own business or slowing down their trajectory to singularity?
And I'll explain that. Okay, sorry, I'm interrupting. Okay, but I would just want to. Do you want to? Okay. So look, they don't understand the black box. Can we go to that side next, please? Because we've been kind of very rightist for a while, right wing. We don't understand, and that is the problem. big problem. Okay, so Sam Altman many times stands up and says, now he says it lesser, that I don't know what's happening. There's another great paper called Parks of AGI, Microsoft paper. Okay, don't read the paper, it's 100 pages, but you can watch a video of that guy talking about it, Sparks of AGI. It talks of something called emergent properties, stuff which is they are not able to explain how an autocomplete thing could do something like this. And that is the reason for the pause, things, etc. First, let's understand what is happening before we go further. But I think the world is kind of not listening to that. Someone else, who was the next person? And what was yours? I don't know. I mean, I hope so, because I think we have become too much of a cognitive society. And I think in our DNA itself, I mean, why do you think people my age, which is a lot older than you, okay, want to go and become a farmer or open a restaurant in Goa? You know, heard of that stuff, right? It's this innate thing that I want to go back to using my hands, to using my human capabilities, etc. And so possibly, and that's why I'm saying I hope that happens. Well, it will. I mean, that's a separate question, so I'll hold for that and answer. The third one was on who were the how you asked about Sam Altman, something. No. In fact, that is the great genius there. Okay, the dark genius. Okay, so one of the things Sam Altman is saying is his idea of regulating is license us. Okay, so basically only licensed entities can produce transformers or LLMs. Okay, if you're not licensed, much like drugs. Okay, if you're drugs as in medicine, if you're not licensed, you can't. And you know what? This favors the incumbent, people who have already produced. And it actually disfavors open source, which is what will, and this is what is being called regulatory capture, Actually, when he's saying regulate us, basically, he has already gotten away with a lot. Now the new guy is coming, stop them, so that I remain the leader.
I'll just add to that manual discussion, right? So
the last set of three,
I think if you follow chess, Gary Kasparov, he was the first grandmaster to play a computer in public, and he won hands down from 85 till 98, and till that IBM's Deep Blue came in, and after that program bet Gary Kasparov, many people said that chess is dead. And now I think India is competing for gold medal in Asian Games. The point, that transition that has happened is that chess is one sport that has seen the transition, people fighting with computer for survival, getting beaten from computer at their own play, and then finding a coexistence, because now the champions like Magnus Carlsen, they use computers to become better at their craft. So I think that coexistence, if the regulation is in place, I think it will happen. So it always creates new jobs for sure. That will always be there.
Sorry, three more. I'll open this thing back. Why don't you take three more questions? I'll open.
Sir, is there a possibility of something happening where, since GPT models, they generate websites now?
Yeah.
And they are themselves trained on these websites.
Yeah.
So they generate the websites that train themselves, and then there is a cycle of bias being created.
That's exactly what I was talking about in synthetic data. Yeah. No, we'll answer. Two more. After that, we'll have to stop. Okay, just because what we'll do is, because there's so many questions, I'll restructure the next class a little bit. Okay, we'll also talk as we go along, but I'll restructure the next class a little bit so that we can have more of the discussion. We have time in the next class, actually. Okay, so, yeah.
Professor Sam Altman's been acting the martyr and trying to get himself compared to Oppenheimer. But in reality, the Manhattan Project was not under any regulation. In fact, it was quite secretive. So why would any regulation prevent any organization that really wants to go forward with AI? It wouldn't stop them. They would still do it under the wraps.
I don't know this. I have no idea. Fine.
Professor, so you mentioned like with generative AI, each one of us could be a software programmer. So if learning happens at such an abstract level of reasoning, a lot less of us in the future will actually be able to understand the math behind such algorithms. So do you think that just leads more to our inability to create control generative AI in the future?
You're the software guy.
Because with generative AI, learning will be so abstract. A lot less of us in the future will be able to understand the math behind these algorithms. So do you think that just leads more to our inability to control generative AI?
It's all about what you want to do with it. Like, I mean, see, as a users, it's upon us to figure out like how deep we want to go in understanding what goes behind the scenes. Like all of us go from one place to another using a aircraft, but most of us don't know how it works, right? So, but as long as it helps us solve a problem. So I'm not sure whether that touches your question, but I think that's what I could think.
And Aditya, your question was very profound. Okay. The only difference between the Manhattan project and now was that there was a war there. Well, yeah, but it's a slightly different war. I mean, that was an existentialist war. None of us were alive. If we were alive, then we would have realized that we are living in a very good time compared to what it was that time. Yes, but the wars going on are corporate wars. They're smaller Russia, Ukraine wars, etc., etc. No, but there is a difference. Okay, actually, I actually want to leave you with this. Okay, I do want to leave you with this. Okay, and this time I'm going to preach a little bit. Okay, as a slightly older person, the lives we are living today are the best that have ever happened. By far, we live in a world of abundance, absolute abundance. Okay, there's 100 types of toothpaste. Okay, there's small cuts don't kill you. You order something and it arrives at your doorstep. There's food for all of us, the people sitting here. Okay, this was not so. We actually were if you were your age, forget mine. Your age, you would be working in factories 12 hours a day, even 150 years before. Okay, and being whipped and beaten or starved and whatever 7 days a week. That was the Industrial Revolution. And we don't realize the abundance that is there today. Abundance actually is the third concept of singularity. There's singularity, there's exponential, and there's abundance. And we don't realize because we were not there. Okay, and even if you read, you don't get it. Okay, and because it's just so far away. And this abundance largely has been brought by technology. The same technology that we sometimes kind of start thinking of in bad way. Without technology, there was no abundance. The whole steam engine onwards, everything, the computer, etc., etc. And we must realize that. That's my preaching. Okay, that technology can be a huge power for good. It can actually do amazing things. That it has done amazing things for us. And that's the way I tend to look at it. Okay, that look, there's this thing, and we are kind of gloom, doom, super boom, whatever. Everything is going to go away. No. There's a greater chance that we actually use this for good than we use this for bad. Greater chance. I'm not saying 100-0. Okay, but a greater chance. And the great part about this is that all of us, including at G7, etc., are already talking about this, are already are aware of this, are figuring out. And that also has not happened in the world before. Even during the Manhattan Project, in the Manhattan Project, there's a theory which says that later on, Oppenheimer actually gave the bomb to the Russians. Okay, because he didn't want a single power, okay, which would control everything, whoever be that power. And so it's a rumor, but it says that it's possible that he actually made sure that the Russians also got the bomb. So look, I would look upon this as the fact that you're lucky that you're living in this era when there's this massive inflection happening. And sure, there's a chance of death and destruction, but that's lower than the further abundance that this can actually create. We will stop here, okay? But we can continue as we talk. You wanted to say something? No, say that if you want. Yeah, you want to plug that in? You couldn't get it. Okay. So We are going to do this without projecting it. For some reason, my internet is not working, etc. But you can see your assignments in Google Classroom. And correct me if I'm wrong, but they are on 4 parameters. Okay. The first 2 are already out of your control. Okay. Which is attendance and class participation. Okay. And there's been plenty of all of that. Okay. So there's I forget the number, but there's a certain number. But the important thing is that there are 2 more things, which, 2 more, right? Which you need to do. And that's why during this long break, one is individual, one is groups. Individual is that create something using generative AI, something. Okay, it could be just a piece of text, which will then get lower marks. Okay, or it could be, a picture. It could be a video. It could be a combination of all of these. It could be something else at all. Okay, but the creation is not the important part. What I want to understand as a part of a 1,000-word or something I put there, you'll see in Google, 800 words. Okay, is that I want you to tell me why you did what you did. How did generative AI help you do that? Okay, you could have done it otherwise too, possibly. Okay, but how did it, and what tools did you use? What prompts did you use? Most importantly, what prompts did you use? What tools did you use? Okay, so that's the fun one. Okay, and that has, I don't know how many marks? 20%, 30%. So that I think is probably among us. And then there's a group one. Okay, and we still have to figure out how we make those groups. Most probably they'll be voluntary. They'll be voluntary. Groups of 5 each. Okay, or maybe more, because I won't be able to control those many groups. So we'll put that very quickly into the classroom thing. So make groups, and what I want that group to present in a very quick presentation on the last, which is 26th of October, 28th of October, okay, whatever that date is. Want to get up here and present one of 2 things. You can choose. Okay, either you can paint a scenario that if all that group was a company or an organization, how would you be working together using generative AI? Or create since it's an entrepreneurial course, okay, tell me a business model of a new product which you want to build using generative AI. One of the 2, not both. Okay, one of the 2. Work or a new, this thing. Now, you've heard of Y Combinator? By the way, in the next class, they're going to be 2 out of the 3 entrepreneurs who are going to come in are going to be YCOM people. Okay, so you know how much time does YCOM give to pitch an idea? You're very optimistic. And get whatever $1 million in funding. So if there are lots of groups, that's the kind of time we are going to get. Okay, to pitch or to talk about it. Not maybe 2, maybe 5. Okay, so this is not a 17-slide deck and which talks about how great you were and how each team did whatever. No, you have to create impact. And again, if you can use generative AI to create that, even better. Okay, so you have to create impact, and whether how you're working together or an organization or a product, a new entrepreneurial something. The only qualification, it needs to use generative AI. It can't be like a SaaS product, which is kind of, solving world hunger or whatever. Okay, so again, individual stuff where you create something and tell me why you did that and what did you use and what kind of prompts you use. And then the second is this group work. Is it? I don't know.
So we yet to decide that.
Okay,
we'll put that on the classroom. And Professor, I think there was a bit about Viva as well for the group project. So whatever you present, Professor or anyone can ask you any questions, and that'll be asked randomly.
Yeah, and look, very frankly, we'll decide that on the number of groups and the time available. Okay, so we'll keep it loose in that way. See, I come from the technology world. I don't make too many Excel sheet rules in terms of this is how it will be. Okay, so we kind of go with the flow a little bit. But important will be, I mean, one of the things I'm very, very keen is to see if through both your group work or your project work, how you do something which is unique or anyone can create a picture, okay, okay, but is there something you bring in which, like, oh wow, I didn't know I could do this, okay, is what is really the key. Any other questions? And we'll put some of those details. Sorry, I don't have all the answers. I haven't thought about it, frankly. But we'll put some of these details in. Thank you very much. I would request one more round of applause for Anuj, who came all the way.